Chaos at Donald Trump's New York hush money trial as a man set himself on fire right in front of the courthouse. The CNN reporter Laura Coates mentioned smelling burning flesh as she described the scene in real time. As it happened, it was right in front of her. In fact, it was right in front of the Trump trial courthouse in Manhattan. Maxwell Azzarello, age 37, doused himself in an alcohol substance before taking a lighter to his clothes right near Manhattan Criminal Court. He was even seen throwing pamphlets in the air just moments before he set himself ablaze. It even remains unclear if the protest was in support or against the former president, who is currently on trial for the hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels. Now, on the Florida native's LinkedIn profile, where he seemingly appears in a photo with Bill Clinton, Azzarello wrote, "We've got a secret fascism problem. The New York Trump trial is certainly attracting the wrong sort of attention, and it's just the first week. In fact, they just finished the jury selection, completing the 12 jurors on the panel, plus one alternate juror." We've got details on that too. With Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Donald Trump attorney Todd Blanche and Susan Nichols pitching in, they were able to complete the panel for Donald Trump's hush money trial in New York. We've got a full list for you guys later, including a woman who was working as a middle school teacher who said that President Trump speaks his mind. She would rather that in a person than someone who's in office and you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. Not to mention, they also have an investment banker who follows Trump on social media and read Trump's book, Trump, The Art of the Deal. And yes, Donald Trump went on Truth Social voicing his complaint about not having nearly enough juror strikes and purposefully being given the second worst venue in the country. Now, some argue that it's impossible for Donald Trump to get a fair jury. It is preposterous to suggest that any American citizen called as a prospective juror could be unbiased when it comes to Trump, the presidential leading candidate, for God's sake. According to polls, mere months away from the election. And to hold this trial in the lead up to presidential election is by definition election interference. Now, excuse the pun, guys, but things are certainly heating up in the Trump New York hush money trial, so you don't want to miss this one. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So first, CNN anchor Laura Coates, who was right there on the scene when a man set himself on fire at the courthouse, right where Trump's hush money trial was taking place.
Well, we were standing, as you know, just outside of the Manhattan courtroom when history had just been made by a fully impaneled jury, and we thought we were reporting on that history. Instead, life would change the course of events here today when a group of people who were standing near an area that once had a Trump flag that was waving in the wind in the courtyard area, a group of people began to scream. Our attention was turned towards that area as onlookers saw some sort of pamphlets go up in the air. Immediately, over the course of what has come to describe modern American history, we had first thought it was an active shooter, to look to the area where people were running away from. At that point, I saw a man lift his arm and appeared to put something on his body, followed by flames that engulfed his entire person. It not only lit his body into flames, but the area around him. People were screaming around the area, and an immediate smell came around from not only some form of a chemical accelerant, but also from the scent of burning flesh. Now,
details say that this was an act of extreme political protest from Florida man Maxwell Azzarello, age 37, who doused himself in an alcohol substance just before taking a lighter to his clothes near Manhattan Criminal Court. Now, before we get any further into this, guys, all I ask is that you guys take 1 second, hit the like button for the video. We totally appreciate it. And I want to thank you guys so much, as always, for always sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. You guys mean the world to me. So NYPD officers rushed to extinguish the flames. First responders unloaded a severely burned Azzarello into the ambulance and rushed him to Cornell University Hospital's burns unit, where he remained in critical condition as of Friday afternoon. They're still not sure if he's going to survive, but in his possible last act, he was seen throwing pamphlets in the air just moments before he set himself ablaze. Some information as regards to a Ponzi scheme and the fact that some of our local education institutes are fronts for the mob. So just a little bit of conspiracy theory going on there. I wonder if there's some truth to it, at least according to police officers. Now, according to his statement online published just moments before this horrifying incident, this was an extreme act of protest to draw attention to an urgent and important discovery. Supposedly, we are victims of a totalitarian con and our own government right alongside with many of their allies. It's about to hit us with an apocalyptic fascist world coup. An hour before he self-immolated, Azzarello posted a text on his Instagram story that just repeated the words, "I love you." His profile claims that he has been self-employed ever since since March of 2023. He was arrested twice last year for disturbing the peace in Florida. Last year, he filed a lawsuit against the Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, Binance, Peter Thiel, Mark Cuban, Richard Branson, and Mark Zuckerberg, among a dozen other entities for fraud. CNN's Laura Coates was live on air when the chaos unfolded. Now, I didn't want to show it to you guys because it was just a little bit too intense, but at one point she said she was totally seeing a charred human being. According to the latest police report, Azzarello was in a critical condition state, and they're working to understand the full circumstances. The terrifying incident unfolded outside the courtroom where the jury selection was taking place. Donald Trump was outside of the courtroom, but still inside the courthouse when Azzarello lit himself on fire. The full jury of 7 men and 5 women had already been selected for this hush money trial, and alternatives were being sought. Judge Juan Merchan, seemingly unaware of what was unfolding outside, told newly selected jurors that opening statements are set for Monday at 9:30 a.m. More on Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial as it just concluded jury selection later in this video, so don't go away, guys. But just a quick second, I just want to thank you guys for always showing your support for the channel. Thank you so much for always lighting up the like button. We totally appreciate it. All right, so all eyes are definitely on New York City right now with Donald Trump's hush money trial. A friend of mine who lives there, his whole neighborhood in a New York City borough loves Donald Trump. The trial proceedings concluded for the week with the completion of jury selection. 5 alternate jurors were chosen on Friday. Now, this is following Thursday's proceedings when the 12 jurors and 1 alternate juror were picked. Now, we know 7 men and 5 women make up the jury, but here's what we got so far. So juror number 1, the 4-person, is a man who works in sales. He reads the New York Times, the Daily Mail, Fox News, and MSNBC, he said. Replaced juror number 2, a married investment banker with a master's degree. He follows Trump on social media and read Trump Art of the Deal. Juror number 3, a corporate lawyer who said that he's not very familiar with the other charges that Donald Trump faces. Juror number 4, which was actually replaced, a married man working as a security engineer with a high school degree. He said he is not on social media. Juror number 5, a woman working as a middle school teacher who indicated she doesn't care to follow political news closely. Quote, President Trump speaks his mind. I would rather that in a person than someone who's in office and you don't really know what they're doing behind the scenes, end quote. So that's what she said during questioning. Juror number 6, a software engineer who said that she can see Trump as a normal person on trial. Juror number 7, a man who is a civil litigator and has children. These jurors were seated Thursday as reported by CNN. All right, so juror number 8, a retired man married with 2 kids who is more interested in his hobbies than the news regarding Trump. Juror number 9, a woman with a master's degree who works as a speech therapist. Juror number 10, a man working in retail who does not follow the news except to listen to psychology podcast. He's unmarried. Juror number 11, a woman who works for an apparel company and said she did not like the president's persona, calling him selfish and self-serving. Trump's team asked for her to be dismissed, but Merchan denied their request. Juror number 12, a married physical therapist with a doctorate and no children. She reads the New York Times, USA Today, and CNN. Now, with a jury like this, I can understand why Trump would be unhappy with the limited number of no questions asked strikes that they were given. As he said on Truth Social, he thought strikes were supposed to be unlimited when they were picking our jury. He said that they only had 10, not nearly enough when they had been purposely given what Trump called the second worst venue in the country. Now, apart from that, his supporters can definitely see why it's impossible for Trump to get a fair jury in this New York hush money trial. I mean, just think about it, guys. Jurors who have an actual interest in the outcome of a trial are, by law, required to be struck from a jury pool. It doesn't take much to meet this standard. Any personal interest in the result is enough to disqualify someone. This is exactly why getting a fair jury for Donald Trump, who's leading the polls as the Republican nominee just months before the election, is virtually impossible. The idea that any prospective juror could remain neutral about Donald Trump just really seems far-fetched, especially considering how the lives of all Americans will ultimately be affected by whoever is elected as the next president. Polls even suggest that Donald Trump's chances of winning could go down if he's convicted in the Manhattan hush money case. The trial's outcome will be undoubtedly influencing his prospects in the upcoming election, hence interfering with the election with these trials. You see where I'm going with this here, right, guys? Now, meanwhile, you got Democrats. They might act surprised and claim that the prosecution is essential to show that no one is above the law. There's a lot of doubts about that, though. After all, I mean, this case was repeatedly passed over by the FEC, federal prosecutors, and even the previous district attorney and the entire Manhattan DA's office. I mean, Alvin Bragg's own predecessor, Cyrus Vance Jr., passed on this case. Now, suddenly, it takes center stage despite its questionable basis in law. It's not hard to see the political calculations that are at play here, especially given the age of the alleged misdemeanor. For Trump supporters living in New York City, they say that they're just hoping that this November, all voters remember how our officials ignored our voices. They say that Biden and every Democrat who has been doing their dirty bidding needs to go. And if Trump goes to jail, they will still vote Trump 2024. But what about you guys? All right, so going back to the hush money trial, Judge Juan Merchan, ahead of jury selection, listed 42 questions that lawyers could ask potential jurors, aiming to avoid digging too deeply into their political leanings or voting history. However, this approach skips over perhaps the most critical question. Who do you want as our next president? Possible answers: Trump, Biden, or indifference. Each reveal inherent biases that no promise of fairness can ever override or counter. Now, of course, they may think that it's wise to select jurors who are indifferent about the presidential election, but if you do that, it would be the farthest thing from fair or constitutional, because then you'd be excluding anyone who cares about national politics, thus not really forming a jury of one's peers, but rather a jury of detached outliers. Now, on the other hand, those who do have a preferred candidate are by definition biased. Their decision in the trial could swing the election toward or away from their favorite candidate. I mean, you saw the breakdown earlier. You can imagine the kind of discussion that this jury is going to make. So yeah, like right now, we're faced with a real dilemma here. All potential jurors are Americans. They're all living in America, and naturally they have opinions about where the country should head. Their lives will be affected by the election outcomes. Yet, we are still expected to find jurors who are both invested in the future of our country and are at the same time somehow impartially able to judge Trump's guilt or innocence. And as they've said, to hold this trial in the lead up to a presidential election is by definition election interference. The verdict will influence the election, and regardless of their statements, jurors will carry biases into the courtroom. These biases will be tied not to the evidence presented to them, but their electoral preferences. But what do you guys think? Is there ever a chance for Donald Trump to get a fair trial under these circumstances? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And I've heard a lot of people actually say that it's time for Americans to stop paying taxes. Me, I say it's time to pay attention more than ever. So make sure you're always tuned in, hit the subscribe button, make sure your notification bell is turned on. And as always, I appreciate you guys hitting the like button, and thank you for sharing these videos on social media, Facebook, Twitter. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.